Good. Well, I think we can make a start. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Applications Committee. My name is Councillor James Husband. I'm Chairman of the committee. And to my right are my fellow councillors, and it will be the five of us this evening who will make the decisions on the cases that are in front of us. To my left, we're joined by officers who will be presenting the cases and offering us advice as we go through the evening. And the officer team this evening is led by Wade Banks, who's sitting on my left, immediate left. So we can make a start. Are there any apologies for absence?
No, Councillor Chairman.
That there are none. Very good. Are there any declarations of interest? Are there any other declarations? There are none. Now, I think we just have one set of minutes that need to be addressed. These are the minutes of a meeting held on the 20th of May. Colleagues, can I sign those as a record, please, of that meeting? Thank you. I think it might help if I indicated the order in which we're going to consider the various cases in front of us. We're going to start in a few moments' time by considering the application at Pembridge Crescent, then Pembridge Road, then Arundel Gardens, Cathcart Road, before we move on to an enforcement case at 24 Earlscourt Square, Holland Park, Queensdale Road, and then Holbein Place. So if we can start with the North Pack, and Julia Travezzui, Julia, you're going to start by presenting Pembridge Crescent, aren't you? So please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Yes, correct. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I would like to bring members' attention to the addendum report. This application tonight is seeking planning permission for various extensions and alterations to the property. I'll just run some slides for members. So this one is the site location plan showing the application site outlined in red. Here we've got the area view showing the application site within the red dot. Members' attention is drawn to various alterations within this group of properties. This shows site photographs of the front elevation on the left-hand side and the rear elevation on the right-hand side. These shows the views towards number 15 and 17, which are the adjacent properties. This slide shows the existing plan on the top and the proposed lower ground floor at the bottom, show the existing, the proposed extensions and various alterations to the lower ground floor. Here we've got the existing and proposed upper ground floor, existing and proposed first floor plan, existing and proposed second floor plan. This one is existing and proposed third floor plan. Existing and proposed roof plan. The existing plan is on the top and the proposed at the bottom, showing the proposed changes to the roof, including AC units being proposed. Here we've got the existing and proposed front elevation, existing and proposed rear elevation, showing the proposed lower ground floor extension, some alterations to the windows and the roof extension. Here is the existing section and proposed section. The recommendation is to approve the proposal subject to recommended conditions, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Now we have speakers for this case. So there are objectors registered. We've got Mr. Mallam, Mr. Hames, and Mr. Peacock, who are, I think, all close neighbours. So perhaps if you'd like to introduce yourselves, you're sitting in the front row, are you? Yeah? So when you're ready, please, you've got between you up to 3 minutes to make whatever points you wish. So please, go ahead when you're ready.
I'm Mr. Peacock. I'm a resident of number 15. I'm here with my wife, and we also have my son and daughter-in-law living at the house. We're not representing the Pembridge Association, but we've been in consultation with them, and we agree with their submission, which has not seemed to carry much weight with the planning people. The point of contention for us, and I think for maybe number 17, is this proposed rear extension, which is described in the planning document as discrete. I'd just like to point out that it is in fact 3 times the size of a small shed-like building which sticks out at the back of the house already, which is got a surface area of about 7 square meters. The proposed extension is 21 square meters in surface area. And I'd also mention that the little bit that sticks out at the back already did not have existing planning permission. As the case officer says, there is no planning history for number 16. And so the first thing I'd suggest is using that little extension's presence as a rationale for building something 3 times its size is a complete inappropriate reference to that. I'd also like to say that the 3 buildings, 15, 16, and 17, were built as a triumvirate in 1854, and they have maintained a consistent frontage and a consistent rear for 175 years, effectively. This extension at the back, which we feel to be too large and unjustified, would be the first outside construction which breaks that conformity of that triumvirate of houses. They've remained in conformity for that length of time. It would be, in our view, a very bad idea to break that on heritage grounds and on fact and also on amenity grounds, because we feel that such a large extension would be open to onlooking, noise and light problems, which we feel are inappropriate. And we don't remotely feel that that's a discrete proposition. We also think that the case officer says that allowing this extension of that depth would set no precedent. That's obviously not correct, because I've already asked if I could extend the rear of my house, which has a bedroom at the bottom, to the exact same depth as that planned extension. So yeah, the precedent is there, and it's likely to be followed up very rapidly, and I think that's a really poor idea as well. Not that I really want to do that, but there we go. That's my 3 minutes, if you want to have a go. Oh, okay.
I'm Paul Milan. I'm owner of 2 flats at 17 Pembridge Crescent, which neighbours, along with a share of the freehold there, including the ground floor flat. I echo my fellow neighbour, Mr. Peacock's views on that extension. It troubles me considerably that that there's considerable precedent, in fact, for planning approvals that have been granted in relation to flats, including one of mine, where developments of this nature were barred, but it seems to have been waved through here. And if you look at the pictures of what this actually looks like, that extension is fundamentally inconsistent with the nature of the buildings. I will add, I'm deeply troubled by the proposed removal of a walnut tree, which is over 40 years old, on the basis, I think it says here, that it's inappropriately located within a small and constrained rear garden.
Time's up. I read your comment about the walnut tree. It may well be that in questions, colleagues will want to pursue all of these points. But if you could just turn your microphones off, because it's the turn now of the agent. So we're joined by the agent, presumably, sir, you sitting behind. Yeah. So in similar fashion, you've got, well, actually a little bit over 3 minutes. So you go ahead when you're ready, please.
Thank you and good evening. I'm the agent for this application and I'd first like to acknowledge that I do of course understand the concerns raised by the neighbours and the Pembridge Association. However, we've developed our proposals in consultation with the Planning Department and have always been sensitive to both the immediate vicinity and the wider conservation area. As the Planning Officer's report makes clear, each concern has been carefully assessed and found to not justify refusal. In terms of character and appearance, the proposed rear extension and alterations are modest and in keeping with the varied extensions already present on Bembridge Crescent. It extends no further than the existing rear extension, and its black painted railings will be conditioned to ensure consistency with the conservation area. At roof level, the reorientated double-pitched arrangement will align number 16's roof with both numbers 15 and 17, and I note that number 15's own roof was similarly reconstructed a few years ago with the addition of new gable ends. The external plant will be hidden within the roof valley, where it will be concealed from view, again exactly like number 15 has already done. The noise impact assessment confirms the roof plant will meet RBKC's strict standards with acoustic mitigation secured by condition, and all windows and doors will be painted timber to match existing. These measures ensure the scheme preserves the character and significance of the conservation area. In terms of the direct impact on the neighbours, the rear infill extension is at lower ground floor level and only fractionally higher than the existing structure, and it will cause no loss of light or overbearing impact to either neighbour. The accessible area of its roof has been reduced to just 90 centimetres depth, and it's set back 2 metres from the boundary with number 15, so it matches the existing balcony. Again, our client is more than happy for its use to be restricted by condition to prevent occupation of the inaccessible roof by anything other than planting. This, along with the new trellis proposed for garden walls, will prevent any additional overlooking and maintains neighbour privacy. Regarding the existing walnut tree, though mature, this has been shown to be too large for this small garden and is unsuitable for its location. The Council's own tree officer supports its replacement with a more appropriate species. The tree at the front will be retained, fully protected, including its roots throughout the works. And then in terms of drainage, a detailed sustainable drainage strategy has been submitted. This introduces permeable jointed paving, green roofs and planters, delivering an overall reduction in surface water runoff compared to the current situation. This ensures no increased risk of flooding or subsidence to either neighbour. And finally, the existing off-street parking space will be retained, so there's no change there. In conclusion, the proposals are well designed, modest, respectful of their setting in a conservation area, and comply fully with policy. I therefore respectfully ask the committee to grant permission so this carefully considered scheme may proceed, allowing our client to move into their new family home.
Thank you very much. So colleagues, our chance to ask questions of either party. Who'd like to go first? Emma. Councillor Dentcode.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask the objectors, I don't mind who responds, because we don't have many photographs and it's a bit unclear as to what's happening at the back. One of the issues, obviously, is about the extension of the balcony on top of the rear extension, which would be larger than the ones on either side. And without photographs, I'm not really sure what that means. So how far out would that extend, and what is your particular problem with the increased size of the balcony on top of the extension? Because the extension would be below ground, and that's another issue, historic issue, is that correct? And then there's the balcony. So perhaps you could explain that without photographs. I'm not quite clear. Thank you.
Yes, I think the problem is that the existing balcony that exists at the moment is clearly just a way of exiting from the back of the house to get to the staircase that goes down to the garden. Now, I know that the balcony that's proposed is a similar size, but the whole development just looks like it's set up for a couple of chairs or tables. So the overlooking is the problem. And it's of a height that if you did either walk or sit on that balcony, you would just look straight into the gardens of both sides, 15 and 17.
I will add to that and say the other element of it is these buildings have a particular character. This is the central building amongst the three properties. The change that is being proposed here is of such a fundamentally different character to the other buildings that, frankly, it looks off. I can tell you now, and Mr. Peacock's alluded to, if this is done, I will immediately ask for an approval to do a very similar thing in my area of the property, which fundamentally to retain some element of consistency between the properties, but also to take advantage of what seems like a massive loosening of policy by this council relative to what was the case when we received the last renovation approval in 2006, where we weren't allowed to do anything of this nature because exactly of the character of the buildings.
Can I follow up, Chair, briefly? Yeah, thank you. I mean, these large family rooms have been added to lots of properties in the building, but your point here is that these particular buildings are of such quality, conservation-wise, that they shouldn't be messed with. Is that the point here? Because I would quite understand that. Is that your point? Because
yes.
This is happening all over the borough, obviously. Yeah.
It is, albeit it's happening largely in independent properties. What you have is three properties here that are all today of a very consistent nature. To the extent that this amendment takes place, and you can see it in the context of the diagrams, or the diagrams that have been presented as part of the planning, it creates a very different property in the middle of our two properties.
Just repeat that the properties were all designed and built at the same time in 1854 by the same builder and the same architect.
You mentioned that earlier, so yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So our turn, colleagues, to ask questions of officers here. Quite a lot going on in this application. I mean, a great many things being altered, but we seem to be focusing on the rear extension. Do we have any comments? It seems to me that it seems relatively similar to things elsewhere, and as has been pointed out, it's essentially, you know, it's the lower level. So can we bring back up some of the plans that sort of make clear what's really happening here?
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully members can see the area view just to give a little bit more context. So the application site is just the one over here. We've got number 15 and 17. So members can see there's already some changes between 15 and 17 with the outrigger extension over there, and there's some roof lines at number 15 as well. So I believe there might be some extensions. And further along the group, we've got an extension at number 19. As well. There are some side photographs. Again, hopefully members can see this photograph shows number 15 and in the extension and the little, I would say it's not really a terrace, but like access to the garden, and the existing access from the application side as well. So the extension is being proposed at the lower level, just below the railings over here. And hopefully this one will be the clearest plan, the existing proposed lower ground floor. So on the top, we've got the existing lower ground floor extension. So as part of the application, the proposal is to extend the full width within the lower ground floor extension with the access to the garden. And then on top of that extension, amendments were sought during the application site to live application to reduce the size of the terrace, to reduce the overlooking and impact on the neighboring properties. So the originally proposed plans were showing much bigger terrace on top of the extension, which has been reduced during the course of the application to reduce the impact as much as possible on the neighboring properties. And members can see the plan on the top, which shows the existing balcony and access to the garden from the upper level. Hopefully that answers.
Thank you very much, Chairman. My question relates to the equipment situated on top of the roof, principally the dish and the air conditioner units. I note in the summary in the pack at 1.1, officers have said that the condenser units would be positioned outside of public or private views, but in the response to comments, you do say that the roof is appreciable within limited private and public views. So just wanted to get clarification on, are these units appreciable within limited public view, or are they not viewable at all from public view?
Thank you. Hopefully I can show the area view again. So the proposed AC units will be located within the valley of the new roof, quite similar to number 15, which will be just behind the pitched roofs. There might be some oblique views of them further along from the mews, but given the size and scale of the existing building and the location of them within the middle of the roof, we are of the opinion it would not be highly visible.
Thank you. And just one more question, if I may, and it's just in relation to the size of the extension at ground floor level. I know you say it's of a depth similar to other buildings on the streets, but I'd just like to know, if permission were granted, would it be the largest on the street, or would there be others that are of the same or larger extension? Thank you.
Thank you. Again, hopefully members can see the area view. I don't have the exact measurements of the other extensions within the wider group, but just looking from it, the extension won't be extending further than the existing little extension. It's just going to be the full width. And members can see number 19's got quite a re-extension as well, consider it. But unfortunately, I don't have the measurements of the others.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Okay, so time to make a decision about this. Yes, I mean it's an interesting set of buildings. As has been noted, these three houses were all built together at the same time. But I think bearing in mind what has happened elsewhere, I think probably on balance it would have to be considered acceptable. I think, I mean, they are large buildings. I rather agree that there's rather a lot going on this new roof, on the new roof, but they are very large buildings, and it's very high up, and you would really, you'd have to be at a higher level in a neighbouring building to even see anything, I suspect. So, is there anyone who'd like to express a contrary view? No. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. So in that case, the recommendation is to grant permission with the conditions set out in the report. Can I see those in favour of the recommendation, please? Okay. So that is agreed. So that permission is granted. Thank you very much indeed for coming along. So if we can now move on to consider the application relating to a shop at Pembridge Road. And I think, Julia, you're going to introduce that again, aren't you?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Again, I would like to bring members' attention to the addendum report. This application is seeking planning permission for replacement of the shop front. This is the site location plan showing the application site outline in red. Here we've got some area views. This slide shows the site photographs of the existing shopfront and its context. Here we've got the existing plans and elevations, show the existing shopfront. And here is the proposed plans and elevation showing the proposed new slide and turn doors that being proposed as part of the application. The recommendation is to approve subject to recommended conditions, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we've got, well, we have objectors registered to speak. First of all, Pembridge Councillor, Councillor Gardner, Joanna, welcome, and also Mrs. Fleming-Brown, and you're present as well. Thank you for coming along. So I don't know how you'd like to do this, but between you, you've got 5 minutes. Joanna, do you want to go first?
This shop is on the main thoroughfare from Notting Hill Gate Tube to Watermelon Market, a key arcade in initial impressions to tourists and visitors alike. It deserves a shopfront that enhances the area and fits with the nearby conservation areas. The report refers to the decisive issues being driving up the quality of the area, preserving or enhancing the quality, character and appearance of the surrounding townscape and nearby conservations, and ensuring good living conditions to residential properties nearby. 6 tilt and turn fully openable sliding doors do not do any of these and are in fact contrary to CD 14E, resisting open shop fronts. The fact that the existing shop front is not typical does not mean replacing it with yet more unsuitable choice will right this wrong. CD 14B for Bertie requires new shop fronts to require the building's original framework, have a positive visual impact on the appearance of the building and streetscape. This shopfront design relies on it being open to trade irrespective of the weather, and the officers wrongly claims that this would not exacerbate unreasonable noise. I don't actually understand the rationale behind this being an entirely opening shopfront, trading day and night, as it is likely to be much more noisy than opening a door for access. I note much of this report refers to granting this application on balance. As a local ward councillor, we've been working with council officers on the Notting Hill Gate Action Plan, and we now have secure funding directly earmarked for improvements in this area, and we hope that this will include shop fronts. I ask the committee that, on balance, they refuse this application as it runs contrary to CD 14B and E and gives ward councillors and residents associations the opportunity to work with the applicant to come up with a shopfront that enhances the area and the visitor experience.
The Pembridge Association has got 3 main objections to this application. Firstly, that it damages views and vistas in the Pembridge and Ladbroke conservation areas. Secondly, that it will further degrade the streetscape of Pembridge Road to the detriment of other retailers. And lastly, that this will make this a less safe space. As Councillor Gardner has said, it's on the main tourist route to Portobello, but also for residents, it's the main route to access the shops and services of Notting Hill Gate. It's currently a characterful mix of vintage fashion and memorabilia with food and beverage outlets. These are low-built Victorian properties, and those in retail use originally all had timber-framed and glazed panel shop fronts and wooden doors. This one has no planning permission, so it never went through any planning process at all, which is possibly why it's in the state that it is. Where the traditional pattern is preserved in Pembridge Road, it works really well with the residential spaces above, and it creates quite a picturesque heritage setting. And we note that one of the adjacent shops is currently restoring their traditional shopfront to a very high standard to fit their brand. So it's simply not the case that this is a bad area where anything goes. Additionally, Pembridge Road pavement is very narrow with a very high pedestrian flow. This congestion is compounded as the opposite pavement is even higher and more narrow. It's got a double curve. So anyone with mobility issues tends to favour the number 16 Pembridge Road side. The proposed doors have no precedent in Pembridge Road, nor are there any other completely openable frontages on this road. These doors are neither appropriate for a Victorian building or in keeping with the design standards expected of a conservation area. They detract from the appeal of the streetscape and contravene many aspects of the borough's own shopfronts SPD. They will lead to greater congestion at this pinch point if left open for trading. We regard this application as setting a very unattractive precedent, and should in the future this premises usage change to food and beverage, for example, we foresee even greater congestion arising. The applicant's reasons for this flimsy and unusual choice of shopfront was their need to create more customer space. But this is a premises which could easily achieve this by reducing its stack of tourist wares. Currently, even its tiny terrace is piled high with goods. It's cluttered and uninviting. These outdoor displays already restrict pedestrian flows when anyone stops to browse, but this would worsen if these doors are open. Presumably, the shop will continue to be heated, so environmentally, these doors are also a poor choice, as all the heat will vanish whenever the doors are open. It already looks more like a market stall than a shop, but the turn and slide doors would exacerbate this undesirable impression in an important street for international visitors within a conservation area. We've been urging the Council since 2018 to improve Pembridge Road. It's currently the most complained about street in my conservation area, and residents expressed their concern about the dilapidated and clumsily refurbished shops with tawdry signage which strips the area of its character and charm. There are far better solutions to make this shop safer, more attractive, and we believe actually a more successful enterprise than this poorly thought through application. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. The applicant isn't represented this evening, so we move immediately to questions. Who'd like to go first? Lloyd.
Thank you. Good evening. I have to say you both make a compelling case. It is neighbouring my own ward of Camden, and I share the comments made by many residents and echo what you've just said. What I'm asking, it's a shame that the applicant isn't represented here tonight, but what I would like to know is, are both the councillor and the conservation area willing to reach out to the applicant to amend this to have a more palatable case to represent to us?
Absolutely. And in fact, we had a similar experience with Foxtons on the corner, where this committee did turn down an application, and we got a solution that worked very well for residents and Foxtons. So we'd like to do likewise here, yes.
Absolutely, we love to work with people because often poor applications are the result of not knowing what to do rather than a deliberate idea of what, doing it in a particular way, and we think we can achieve something much better.
And I'm also aware, as Councillor Garner mentioned, about the improvement to the area, which will include, we hope very soon, the shopfront design specifications. And could this fall within that remit of that type of co-design? And I believe this is kind of imminent, so that could be another opportunity to share with the applicant.
I've certainly had a conversation with the team lead, and we are very hopeful. I think it's got to go to legal first. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I feel the same as Councillor Lloyd here. Do you think this is a case where, as we know, Notting Hill Gate has been struggling for many years and is finally, slowly but surely, improving itself? At that stretch, really needs more than love, doesn't it? It needs genuine improvement. And as you say, it is the first thing people see. And would it be the same? Do you know? Not that it should matter actually about the design, but do you know if it would still be a souvenir shop, or would that be changing? Because it looks very temporary at the moment. Do you know, or isn't that relevant? Because clearly, if it's going to be opening doors, it would be hospitality of some kind, and they'd want to change of planning use, wouldn't they?
Personally, I've not been told anything to the contrary, so I don't know.
Okay. So I think, it is a case where maybe working with the shop owner would put us in another place entirely, perhaps.
We would also add that we think that the tide may be turning in this road because there's a very large traditional shop front which has been vandalised and dilapidated for quite some time, and this is going to be completely restored. The work's already been done, and it looks very good. And this French company selected Pembridge Road to be one of their flagship stores. And so they see the charm of the area that I think we see, and they have a vision for the future. So, as we said, one of the things that really distresses us about this is not only its inherent unsuitability and ugliness, but the fact that it will also put off other better retailers, because you tend to get, like frontages and like-minded designs together, and we want to see an uplift. We want to see, if it is the route to Portobello, that it reflects, the route, and that there are the interesting Victorian architecture is preserved. Because actually on this building, there are two corbels, for example. They're very, very degraded, but they're still there, so you can still read the original structure of the building. It would be very cheap to restore it. I mean, it's not an expensive thing, but the look that it would give a unity to the parade, and it would be a marker. And what we notice time and time again is people notice good examples, and they say, I'll do that. But it's not in their heads to do it if the worst examples are in front of them.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Any other questions? No? Oh, well, sorry, I couldn't see your... Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. I note in the objections there are requests for various conditions, one of which is that doors should be closed at night time, and another in relation to excluding wares outside the store. If, hypothetically, those conditions were included, would that significantly assuage your concerns, or do your concerns run deeper in relation to the design of the shop front, so that even if there were conditions, you would still object?
So that row of shops all has residential flats above it. So I have a fundamental worry that you have unregulated music and you have open door fronts. The other thing, as Fiona mentioned, that pavement is very, very congested, and it leads down into a tree. So actually, we already have a slight problem, well, we already have a big problem, particularly on Fridays and Saturdays, when the wares on the pavement are a challenge. So to make it an open shop front, I think it will still lead to more people standing on the curbside looking in, as opposed to going into the shop. So for me, whilst the conditions are helpful, they don't go to the root of the problem.
I think that would be, if you consented it, that would be an amelioration, but it is not desirable of itself, and it's not desirable for what it will do for the rest of that stretch of Notting Hill, because it's already got a lot of poor quality shop fronts, but they could very easily be lifted. On that particular stretch, the vintage clothing shops, they've still got all the timber structure there. They look scruffy, but they're savable. They could be vastly improved very cheaply. But the moment you create an open frontage there, every other retailer, there are 3 other tourist souvenir shops of a very similar nature there now, all in a row, all concentrated there. So the moment one does it, the rest will do it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much indeed. Questions to officers? Who'd like to go first? Sam.
Thank you. I know in my own ward that bit by bit, in a particular street, aluminium, glass and glass shop fronts are being replaced by traditional-looking Victorian timber shop fronts, and there is a tipping point, as the objectors are saying, where the other landlords decide to follow suit because they find it an advantage to bring up the area. So with that in mind, I just wanted to understand how officers got comfortable to recommend this shopfront, which actually seems to be against both the direction of policies of improving, but also seems to have some direct contraventions in some of the sort of methods of being fully opened, and it looked like that was something that, on balance, you could have come down in the other way and say that this isn't a good application to grant.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, the recommendation was made on balance, as members mentioned. It is really difficult because we have to make the assessment based on the context and the current application and the policies and what is happening on the site, rather than what might happen in the future or might not happen. In terms of this existing shopfront, yes, we can acknowledge the needs of improvement, but as part of the material consideration, we have to take it into consideration that there is an existing shopfront which is made of aluminium with a quite large opening already, and therefore the proposed one of a similar materials would on balance be acceptable. That's the conclusion of the officers.
Okay, so we have in front of us this souvenir and gift shop. I think, colleagues, my own thinking about this is that I think if I was having just an ordinary everyday conversation with Councillor Gardner and Mr. Fleming Brown about this, I don't think I would disagree with anything they've said, actually. I think the current shop looks rather, rather unattractive, shall we say. And I think the idea of trying to improve the shop frontages in Pembroke Road is extremely desirable. I suppose the difficulty which takes me to be perhaps a bit more sympathetic to the officer recommendation is, first of all, well, we can see what's there at the moment, all right? And there's, there's no getting away from what's there at the moment, and that is a material consideration. I think the other aspect of it is that the fact of the matter is that the new Class E does give a lot of flexibility about use. That's brought in a few years ago. The souvenir shop could suddenly disappear next week, and as has been said, it could become a restaurant, but that's permissible. And the final point, which I think is, it is fundamental to the way, for better or for worse, the planning system works, and that is the applicant is entitled to put forward the application that they wish. It might be that it would be entirely reasonable for a better application to be put forward. There might even be a bit of money around to be able to enable a better application to be made. But that's not quite the point. We're here to consider what's in front of us. But colleagues, I'm interested to know what you think. I think there have been some quite critical comments about this. Perhaps if we can, maybe it's worth just quickly going down the line on this, so just quickly how we reckon about this. I don't know who'd like to kick off. Lloyd.
Yes, it is a difficult one, and I understand it is on balance. I have to say, as I say, my ward butts straight onto this. It is a big topic of conversation, the improvements of Notting Hill Gate and raising the standards and raising the bar. And we are making progress, I think, collectively on that. And I think my sniff test on this one is if I walk past in 2 years' time and I see a tatty shop and I see something that could be better, there is a risk there. I'm happy to take that risk, and I would say, on balance, I would refuse this because I think we can do better and we should do better. And we should also encourage the applicant to do better, and there may well be funding or there may be encouragement to do that in the very near future. So on balance, I would fall the opposite side to the officers. Thank you.
I agree with Lloyd.
Oh, gosh. Well, that was concise. Thank you very much indeed for that.
Yeah, don't get too excited.
Who'd like to go next? Will.
Thank you, Chairman. I am minded to agree with my colleagues. I think the character and appearance of the proposed changes, specifically the glazed black painted aluminium slide and turn doors, are not compliant with the policies CD1, CD2, 10 and 15. I think they are out of character with the local area and would not improve the character and appearance of the local area.
Yes, in line with my colleagues, but also as the objectors mentioned, it seems a missed opportunity if we were to allow this, even with our reservations about its design and what looks like aspects of it which are against policy, particularly in full opening shopfront terms, for there not to be a conversation in the light of what the objectors have said, which could result in not just one more pleasing shopfront coming up as a proposal again, but also setting the trend that bit by bit, as we have seen in a number of other roads, that they all in their own due time follow on and create a higher quality environment. So I think my own feeling is that as the others, which is we shouldn't make things materially worse by granting this one, and there's an opportunity to improve through dialogue before another application might come forward.
Okay. Well, thank you very much indeed. Well, I think colleagues, I think I get the general drift of what's been said, and I'm sure officers have as well. I think what I probably would suggest is that we put the recommendation to the vote and see what happens. So the recommendation is actually to grant with the couple of conditions set out in the report. Can I see those in favour of granting, please? Can I see those against? Okay, so the recommendation is not adopted by 4 votes to 1. So we need to now consider a new resolution, which is reasons for refusing the application, and I think it's probably best if we immediately turn to the officers and ask for their advice, because I think we know from appeals that the exact formulation of reasons for refusal is incredibly important. Inspectors take that incredibly seriously. So, Julia, do you want to kick off? I think really the shopfront policy says that a shopfront can't be entirely open, and I think that would seem to me to be at the core of a reason for refusal. But what do you think is the best course for us here?
Yes, I've been making some notes of the conversation members were making this evening. So the words I've kind of listed was appearance, design, aluminium glaze slide and turn doors, openable, fully openable, would not have an acceptable impact on the character and appearance of the local area, and therefore would be contrary to policies. That was kind of the conclusion of members, but I'm not sure whether you would like to add anything else to it.
Perhaps other officers, if I could ask, are there any other reasons that come to mind which are really strong things that an inspector would be bound to take account of? Obviously, they're going to read these policies if it were appealed. I mean, obviously, we don't know. No idea if it will be appealed. But are there any other points that anyone would like to make, or do you think it's best that we just stick to this one point, which after all is explicitly mentioned in our policies. Wait, do you want to, or do you want to? No, I'm sorry, Joanna. I beg your pardon. You can't speak at this point.
I'll let Julia expand if I leave anything out, but just to note that the officer's report, I believe, acknowledges the shortcomings and failures of policy, but then makes an unbalanced decision. So I think it's perfectly reasonable if members reach a different conclusion on that balance. And I think that is a defendable position.
So, I'm sorry.
Yes, just in picking up a couple of comments, and again, this is for officers to say what makes sense, but just in way of helping. I'm not sure I would criticise it for being aluminium because that isn't a change in material, and I just acknowledge that there's a lot of aluminium around. But if we're looking at CL1, to improve the quality and character of the buildings and the way it functions, I don't think what we've got here would be an improvement, or CL1A, development to contribute positively to the townscape. Again, I don't see the positive bit coming out here. Or CL2, taking opportunities to improve the quality and character of buildings and the area. So this isn't taking the opportunity to improve. And then, but you tell me if I'm quoting these wrongly. And CL10E, resist open shop fronts. So it looks like there are a number of things that in my non-expert way I would point to say it looks like there are grounds to make something significant and clear.
Well, I would no, I agree with what you're saying there, Sam. So I think if we perhaps we're going to obviously need to vote on the resolution to refuse, but I think officers, when they write the exact reason for refusal, take account of the things that Councillor Mackover has said there, which I think may well be useful points. But it's up to officers to try and make a judgment about that. So I need a proposer. Maybe Councillor North would like to do this, to refuse for the reasons that we have just discussed, and which the exact wording will be formulated by officers. Is that seconded? And it's seconded by Councillor Dent-Code. Can I see those in favour of a resolution to refuse on that basis? There are no against, nobody against, so that's the resolution is carried unanimously. Good. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Can we stay in the North Pack, please, and we will go to Arundel Gardens. Julia.
Thank you, Chairman. So this application is seeking planning permission for lower ground floor extension and the roof terrace above it, and some alterations to the doors and windows. There are no speakers for this application, so I haven't prepared any slides, but I'm happy to answer any questions. The recommendation is to approve subject to conditions, and officers were seeking some alterations to the design to overcome the objections. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions? I've just got one. I think this proposal has already been subject to some amendment in relation to the staircase. Is that correct, or have I not?
Yes, that's correct. As part of the application, officers sought some amendments to set the staircase away a little bit further within the sign, so it doesn't extend beyond the closet wing. That was some of the elements the neighbouring properties raised as a concern.
Pardon. The recommendation is to grant permission with the conditions set out in the report. Can I see those in favour of granting, please? So that is agreed. Thank you. So now can we consider the application in the South Peck at Cathcart Road? And I think Amanda Peck. Amanda, you're going to introduce that, aren't you? So please, go ahead.
Lovely. Thank you. So, this is an application for a single-storey first floor side extension and the relocation of the side... Sorry, start again. This is an application for a side extension and the relocation of the front door. As you can see from this aerial view, it's one of 3 properties, similar properties on Cathcart Street. So on the left, you can see the 3 properties there. There's an existing first floor extension at number 3, which is on the left, and the application site is on the right with the red arrow. And then the aerial view on the right, you can see the application site, and then we've got Seymour Walk, which is just to the rear. So as you can see, the side building line of the application site tallies up with the rear building line of Seymour Walk. The next slide is the existing and proposed front elevation. So on the left, you have the existing front elevation, and what you can see sort of in the distance where the extension is that's the building in the background. That's number 53 Seymour Walk behind it. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the proposed single-storey extension, and you can also see the relocation of the front door here. And then if we go to this side elevation, again, existing on the left and proposed on the right. And again, on the right-hand side drawing, what you can see are the existing rear elevation windows and roof terrace at number 53 Seymour Walk. We have existing and proposed first floor drawing here. So the red hatched area is where the extension is to go. And the bottom right-hand side drawing is the proposed first floor. In conclusion, officers consider the proposal acceptable in terms of design, and there would be no unacceptable amenity impacts. And in relation to amenity impacts, I'd just like to note condition 5, which restricts the use of the roof of the extension as a terrace. So the recommendation is for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have Martin Leggett. Good evening, sir, and thank you for bearing with us. So you have up to 3 minutes whenever you're ready. Please go ahead.
Thank you. We note and appreciate the improvements to be made to the proposals which were originally objected to by the Council. And whilst the height of the second floor extension directly alongside our house has been reduced, and a clause has been inserted that forbids access to the new roof, quite how this access ban to the roof is formally pleased, I can't imagine, particularly after a number of years have elapsed in new ownerships. I'm very doubtful how someone gaining access to the new roof for, say, sunbathing would be legally reprimanded for doing so in future months or years to come. The permanent sense of harmful, overshadowing, towering enclosure and detrimental effects on living conditions totally remain, along with a significant reduction in sunlight and loss of view and vista blocked off by the new extension. I'm disappointed and surprised that we have not received any request for an on-site assessment to be made regarding the significant loss of daylight, sunlight and the sense of enclosure. And for the above-mentioned points, the Council seems to have relied solely on mathematical calculations, despite the Council's own guidance that this is unreliable. The proposed new extension will radically and permanently reduce the sunlight and daylight which we currently enjoy, and put our house in gloomy shadow and block our house from previously enjoyed views and light. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. There may well be questions. Are we also joined by Stephen Carroll? Hello, good evening. So you're representing the applicant. Please go ahead. You've got up to 3 minutes.
Thanks, Councillor. The applicant made a pre-app submission in May 21 for a basement and a side extension, which you now see at first floor, with a roof terrace sitting over that, with balustrades around. In that consultation, there were various points made. A basement application was submitted in May 24 and approved, and the side extension has been recently submitted. And it was submitted with a series of changes, including removal of the second floor terrace and the balustrade, therefore reducing the overall height of the building and reducing the length of the building to sit alongside number 53 to preserve the gap between our building, between number 7 and Corbett House. During the application, the planners asked if we could make a concession on the height, and further reductions were made in the overall height of the proposals by a further foot. During the application, the pre-application advice was circulated, which created a considerable amount of misinformation, giving rise to 3 objections, which is now why we're sitting here. Number 5, Cathcart, makes reference in their objection to a terrace on the second floor that doesn't exist and raises concerns about a basement excavation which is already permitted. And the gentleman sitting here at 53 makes similar objections to a roof terrace on the top and a towering wall, and being able to peer over into their property, which is totally impossible. The proposals only have two windows, like French doors, which face over the road, the Cathcart itself. The height of the proposals, it notes about, and additionally in the objection, it notes about a glazed balustrade, which doesn't exist within the proposals. Further, the third objection constantly refers to the advice report submitted about the pre-app, which again, none of the objections are detailed or relate to the proposals themselves. The submitted proposals remove the concerns, in our view, that were raised at pre-app, which is the right thing to do in terms of the applicant and the agent. The proposals are positive to the street scene and preserve the gap between the 2 properties to the side. It's against the side of 53 and only reaches the same height as the existing balustrade to 53. It's not clear there is permission for a terrace on number 53, which currently has a flat roof. The rear windows 253 and 51 were adapted to provide doors onto the flat roof, whilst the further property one on still has the 2 windows as dormers. So we're not aware of any consents that exist for that use. There's no intention for the applicant to use the flat roof over this first floor extension as a terrace. I think the concerns are considerably overplayed. And further, the extension is situated to the north of 53, so the only possible sunlight degradation could be very much at the very end of the day, if anything at all. And the height of the coping of the extension only extends to the height of the balustrade of the roof, which I would call it.
Okay, thank you very much. Colleagues, any questions about this? No? Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for that. Questions to officers? Anyone like to go first? I'll go first. The issue of daylight and sunlight, I mean, it's just been mentioned, the site sits essentially to the north of its properties, right at the very end of Seymour Walk. Presumably that means that we've decided that daylight sunlight assessment isn't really necessary. It's going to be compliant.
Yes, there's no daylight sunlight assessment submitted as far as I know, and we've assessed it on the basis of the orientation and the size of the extension. So, yep, you're correct. The north, with it being to the north, that would mean there's very limited impact on the sunlight. I think it's the evening sun.
The recommendation is to grant with the conditions set out in the report. Can I see those in favour, please, of the recommendation? So that is agreed. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Can we now turn to the enforcement case 24 Elscourt Square, which was deferred from a meeting some months ago? And I think, Amanda, you were going to present this.
Thank you. As far as I'm aware, there are no speakers today, but I've prepared just a short presentation because it's got some history. So the item came to committee on the 6th of December 2024, and it was deferred so a meeting and a conversation could take place between the enforcement officers, the owners and the Residents Association. We then brought the item back to the 24th of June 2025 committee, and that was unfortunately deferred because notification letters were not sent out. As part of that process, we did receive a further representation from the owner in the addendum pack. And for this addendum pack for today's committee, we've had two representations, one from the owner and one from a local councillor, and they're in your addendum report. We've also had an additional email that was circulated today, which was from the owner. So I've got a few slides just to show the photos, just to remember. So these are the photos that were presented at the 6th of December, in 2024. So on the left is the before photos, and the issue in question is that the property has been painted magnolia. And the question is whether it is considered to be development, whether it's considered to harm the character and appearance of the conservation area, and whether we should take enforcement action. The photos on the right are the photos that were presented at committee in December 2024. And then my next slide just has some updated photos that were taken last week by our enforcement officer, again, just to show the existing situation. So paragraph 8.5 of the report sets out the meaning of the definition of development. And paragraph 8.7 refers to the fact that there is an Article 4 direction here removing permitted development rights for painting. Officers are of the opinion that the painting doesn't materially change the colour, is therefore not development, and we cannot take action, and they recommend that the case is closed. If councillors believe that it is development, there's a second test. A consideration is whether the painting preserves or enhances the character and appearance of the conservation area, and officers are of the opinion that it preserves the character of the conservation area, and therefore recommend that the case is closed and we take no further action. In terms of the discussions that have taken place between the enforcement officers, the owner and the Residents Association, paragraphs 1.3 to 1.5 of the report summarise that discussions have taken place separately between the enforcement officer and the owner and the enforcement officer and the Residents Association since December 2024. And we've been unsuccessful in getting a meeting between both parties. So the recommendations are that no further action is taken and the case is closed. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for that. Colleagues, questions for officers about this? Councillor North.
Thank you, Chairman. So I am familiar with this case. I remember watching it from afar, and my colleague, Councillor McAvoy, I believe, was on that case as well. And I believe it was Councillor McAvoy that put forward the suggestion that there was a compromise involved here. And I'm just kind of checking why that compromise couldn't go ahead, even if the successful discussions didn't go ahead. That was, from memory, that the lower floors would be matched, and at some point in the future, when a redecoration would occur, then the upper floors could come in line, because I believe the original conservation area specification actually specified a type of paint for this, which had a British standard number as well.
Yep, just to clarify, the specification for the paint isn't a council policy. It's a reference in a Residents Association document, so it's not a council planning policy. As I understand it, there has been a compromise that's been suggested. I don't know if it's been agreed. The Residents' Association agreed that they would accept the lower ground floor as being repainted, and I think the owner's compromise is that one of the pillars would be repainted. So they've both suggested a compromise, but haven't agreed. They're still not in agreement on that compromise.
Just to say, is there a way that this compromise can be met rather than us make a determination to... Because I am aware that this is an issue with local residents, and it is a kind of well-known issue, or even though outside of this small resident association, it could seen at the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea disputes the colour of a magnolia paint. So I know it's relevant to local residents.
In terms of our enforcement powers, because enforcement officers consider that it's not development and that we can't take any action, we can't actually force either the Residents' Association or the owner to accept each other's compromise. So we've been facilitating the discussion, but our opinion is that it's not development and doesn't need planning permission. So we are of the opinion that it's not expedient to use our enforcement powers to force either party to do, not force either party, to force the owner to carry out works.
Okay, thank you. Other colleagues, other questions? This is difficult. Obviously, I chaired the committee where this got deferred, and I think it was the feeling from all of us that we hoped some kind of compromise that could take place, and that something could be agreed that wouldn't be too onerous on the freeholder of the properties, and something that would satisfy the local residents. But I think unfortunately, there's various emails we've seen in the addendum pack. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened, and we're back with this problem that having sort of pushed what we can do to the absolute limit, I suspect, regrettably, in many ways, we can't go any further, really. We simply don't have the power. We're in the position which we come to on a fairly regular basis, that as a planning committee we're unusual in the sense that residents can come along and people can make representations to us in a way that perhaps other bits of the council they can't. But that runs into the wall, I was going to say pillar, but the wall of saying there are actually there are really sometimes quite limited things that the planning committee that we really have powers to do, and I think it's one of those sort of cases. I feel. I don't know what the other options would be. Is there anyone who'd like to suggest that we should defer it again? Personally, I wouldn't support that, but would anyone suggest that? Emma?
I just want to make a comment, Chair, if I may. Only in the Royal Borough would we be arguing about shades of magnolia. I'm sorry, anybody watching this will think we're all mad, and I'm sure this is driving local residents crazy. But really, really, I'm sorry, I just had to say that because people will be laughing at us, frankly.
Yeah, okay, all right. I take your point. We've discussed a souvenir shop selling souvenirs that I think rather a large number of residents would have no interest in buying. And I take your point about argument about shades of magnolia, but I think we'll leave it there if you don't mind. Is there any, on the substantive point, is there anyone who, unfortunately, I feel that this has run its course. We've done our best. It hasn't worked. So I think we have to accept that this does not constitute development, and as such, the case is closed. Is that? Do we reluctantly, perhaps, accept that? Okay. All right. So I'm just seeking officer advice. So the correct legal way, the recommendation that we have is simply that we accept the officer recommendation that no further action is taken. Yes, yes. Okay, so do we accept the officer recommendation? Those in favour? So the recommendation is agreed. Thank you. So if we can now move to the applications relating to 36 Holland Park. And I think, Julia, that's back to you, isn't it?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So I would like to bring members' attention to addendum report. Planning permission and listed building consent have been sought for erection of a garden, outbuilding and timber pergola, and some alterations to a landscape within the rear garden. The recommendations are to grant planning permission and listed building consent subject to recommended conditions. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions about this? No. I think the key point here is that it's a very large property with a very large garden. And although in a different context, this garden room would be viewed as completely out of character, I think probably in these circumstances it would have to be considered acceptable. Are there any questions or comments at all? No. In that case, the recommendation first is to grant planning permission. Can I see those in favour of granting planning permission, please? That is agreed. And it's also necessary to consider listed building consent. Can I see those in favour of granting listed building consent? That is also agreed. Thank you. Can we stay in the North Pack and consider 30 Queensdale Road?
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I would like to bring members' attention to addendum report. Planning permission has been sought for extensions and alterations to the property, including side extension, roof extension, some changes to the boundary. The recommendation is to grant subject to conditions. There are no speakers, so I haven't prepared the slides, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions relating to this application? Okay. In that case, I think we can move to a vote. So the recommendation is to grant permission. Can I see those in favour, please? So that is agreed. Thank you. And finally, we return to the South Pack for 18 to 22 Holbein Place. Amanda.
Okay, so this is an application for planning permission and advertisement consent for a single-storey rear extension, bike and bin stores to the rear and replacement of plant to the rear, minor changes to the shop front and new adverts. There's no addendum and there's no speakers, and the recommendation is to approve both applications. So I have nothing further to add in terms of presentations, but I'm happy to answer questions. Thanks.
Are there any questions about this application? No. No. Okay. Well, in that case, now here we have planning permission, and we also have advertising consent, which also needs to be considered. If we can take the planning permission first, the recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour of granting, please? So that is agreed. And the advertising consent for non-illuminated signage, can I see the recommendation is that this is agreed as well. Can I see those in favour of the recommendation, please? So that is agreed too. Very good. Well, thank you very much indeed, everyone. Thank you, and that concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you.